and may be viewed online at ajax.ca/live. A friendly reminder to all participants, please use your microphone at all times for the benefit of those participating in council chambers and joining remotely. I'll now call this meeting to order. Start with the land acknowledgement. I'd like to begin this meeting by acknowledging that the land on which we gather is situated on the traditional and treaty territories of the Mississaugas. More specifically, the Mississaugas of Scugog Island First Nation, signatories of the Gunshot Treaty of 1788 and the Williams Treaties of 1923. This land is and will continue to be home to the Indigenous peoples. Let us acknowledge the mistakes and traumas of the past through authenticity and support truth and reconciliation. Let us engage and celebrate Indigenous communities by being leaders of action in acknowledging the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous Peoples and the Truth and Reconciliation Commission's recommendations towards truth and reconciliation. Let us keep these principles close as we continue towards truth and reconciliation and as we move forward with kindness and respect as a community. Before we begin, I want to make a few notes on behalf of myself and council with regards to delegation number 5.3, National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City Mosque Attack and Action Against Islamophobia. Good evening, everyone. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you for joining us today to honor and acknowledge the National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City Mosque Attack and Action Against Islamophobia. I'd like to thank, is Rizwan Mohammed here? I didn't see him when I first came in. He might be a bit later. I want to thank Rizwan from the National Council of Canadian Muslims. I know Brother Waqas is here from the Islamic Society of Ajax, and Kubra Mir from the Muslim Women of Durham Region. Are you here? Yes, thank you for coming tonight, for joining us today. Also like to thank all members of the Muslim community who have joined us this evening. On January 29th, Canada marks the federally designated National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City Mosque Attack and Action Against Islamophobia. In 2017, a gunman entered a mosque and opened fire on Muslim worshippers, killing 6 men and injuring many more. You'll notice all members of council are wearing a green square today in solidarity with the Muslim community and to honor the victims and survivors of the Quebec City Mosque Attack. The green square symbolizes the green carpet of the mosque where the victims last stood to pray. And we wear this green square to reaffirm Ajax's commitment to stand against Islamophobia in all forms. We wear it because we remain hopeful that the town of Ajax and Canada as a nation will be a safer place for people of all diverse communities. And I invite you to join me and Canadians across the country to stand against Islamophobia and all forms of hate for a better future for all. Thank you. I do have a proclamation that I will present when we get to the delegation to the members. Does any member of council have any disclosure of pecuniary interest? No, hearing and seeing none. Moving on to adoption of the minutes, we have moved by Councillor Crawford, second by Councillor Tyler Morin, that the following minutes of previous council meetings be adopted. The regular meetings of December 11th, 2023, and the special meeting of January 15th, 2024. Any questions, comments, errors, omissions on the minutes? No, hearing, seeing none, please vote. That is carried. Mr. Clerk, were there any questions from members of the public submitted on tonight's agenda?
Mr. Mayor, we have not had any questions submitted for consideration tonight.
Okay, thank you very much. Moving on to delegations, presentations, and public meetings. First one, 5.1, we have a delegation from Agricultural 101 presentation, Durham Agriculture Advisory Committee, Zach Cahoon, member of Durham Agriculture Advisory Committee, and Neil Guthrie, member of Durham Agriculture Advisory Committee. Please come forward. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Zach Cahoon. I don't think that's my presentation, but it looks great. I am a farmer from northern Durham, Port Perry, Seagrave, Sunderland, Manila, and I'm here to talk about agriculture and what it means to you and what DAC does for you. DAC provides advice to the region of Durham on agricultural matters and rural matters as they relate to agriculture. agriculture. We're here to help you understand what agriculture means to you. We have 17 members, and there's a representative from each local municipality, as well as the Federation of Durham and Durham Farm Fresh. There are also 3 non-farm representatives on the community. In Ajax, agriculture is a significant economic driver in Ajax. Wide diversity of agricultural products, from livestock and grains to sod, fruit, and much more. And 98% of farms are family-run farms. And I think that's false. All farms are family-run farms somewhere. Some family runs them. Agricultural businesses are essential. We create the wealth and we provide the foundation for the economies of your community. Beyond producing food, agriculture brings diversity and other benefits to our community. Food pricing, very hot topic right now. Agricultural pricing, what I get as a primary producer, is much different than what you pay. There's many things. I take world price. I have no control over what I can sell my things for. Agriculture is the only business that buys everything retail and sells all their products at wholesale. Factors that impact food price are inflation, labor shortage, supply chain disruptions, changes in purchasing patterns, poor weather in growing areas, tariffs, higher input costs, wage increases, wars. All kinds of political issues change the price. And for every dollar spent on food, the farmer receives on average 7 to 17 cents. Carbon tax does not help my business, nor does it help your food prices. It affects every little part of what we do. I dry 2,600 tons of corn. My carbon bill was $3,500 for 1 month of drying corn. I don't get that money back. That's significant. When you talk to your people in federal jurisdictions, please tell them that the carbon tax hurts us and it hurts you. There's many types of agriculture. There's primary agriculture is what I do. I grow grain. I also raise lambs and beef, and in the past I've raised chickens and hogs. These are all parts of primary agricultural production. We have agriculture-related and supportive agribusinesses, which is a huge part of the economy here in Ajax as well, from supports and building materials and retail outlets and Home Depots and all kinds of things that farmers buy. We also provide a lot of raw materials for those things. And then we have the new thing, diversified agriculture, new and in demand, value-added agriculture, the farm markets, the roadside markets, Strouds, all kinds of things that people come to visit. Agritourism is a big thing. People are leaving communities that are high in urban places and going north to other farm businesses where they have on-farm events so people can be part of their food production and know where the food production comes from. On-farm diversified uses is a good thing for the economy. It allows the second generation to move on to a farm business and create a living. Planning for Ajax Ag, I'm here to talk to you people, because you people can talk to other higher up politicians and tell them that agriculture matters to you and that you can do something about it. And this is what helps our economy. It produces money and it produces the fuel that your economy runs on. What do we at DAC have issues, or what do we talk about? We talk about how your policies can affect agriculture, and we give advice and say, listen, this is not going to work for us in agriculture. Mountable curbs, larger roundabouts. Roundabouts are a great thing in agriculture as long as they're big enough to hold the tractors. My tractor that you saw in the first picture, that is my tractor. It is 20 feet wide. I can't make it any narrower. That's how wide it is. And roundabouts, now I don't come down here, but there is people that do. And there's people that are very close to me that farm in the Ajax area. And transportation and moving their equipment around happens from midnight to 4 a.m. so that they can move around. And that's a concern for them. But they do it for the safety of their operators, and they do it for the safety of the people in the neighborhood so that they can get their jobs done without creating any problems. Agribusiness is huge. Everything that you touch, eat, or do. I read a quote once, and I can't quote it exactly, but I'll give you my rendition. Every person's life, they're going to need a doctor at one time, a lawyer, a dentist. But every day, 3 times a day, you're going to need a farmer. That's probably not exact, but it's pretty close. On-farm diversified uses, that's agritourism, on-farm food processing, education, and home industries. These are economic potential for rural areas, but they also allow people to move into our region. A lot of the Durham region is a fantastic agricultural center, but we ship almost all of our raw materials out, 2 hours out. When you are talking to your counterparts at the provincial and the federal members, we have a port in Oshawa that is underutilized for grain transportation. All of my corn goes to Havelock, all of my wheat and soybeans goes to Hamilton. All of it has to be trucked 2 hours away. If I could load a boat in Oshawa, it would be fantastic for fuel savings as well as efficiency, and it is a great asset to the community, all of the communities. Supportive planning and development policy to support these uses in business is very good. So when we're talking about agricultural businesses and what they can do for the community, they do more than just produce raw materials. They also produce jobs, they produce fuel, they produce all kinds of things that help tie a community together. There's crop and input and feed supplies, and these are all examples of the bigger agricultural wheel. Like I said, agriculture is a foundation piece. It is a foundation, and without a good foundation, no economy works well. Farmers in Durham region are very innovative. This is actually a picture of where I live, and that is a yield map taken from my combine. That is a field of soybeans in 2022 we harvested. The very green parts are very good yields, and the redder parts are poor yields. Poor yields on the scale, it's kind of a funky little bit of mathematical foolery that goes on. But I can tell you, where it's all really green, it's wet. And where it's really red on top of that, that is a hill, and it's very sandy. And in my business, I do different things with that piece of land. I'm trying to build up the organic matter so it has better water holding capacity, and I do that by using cover crops and no-till type tillage. I also add mushroom compost, and I do fertilizer testing and add only the amount of fertilizer that will support the yield that we have.
Mr. Cahoon?
Yes.
We allow 5 minutes. You're at 9:12.
Okay.
So you're going to have to wrap up, please.
No good, no problems. I think I've said all I can say, except that DAC is here to help you. If you have concerns about agriculture, please contact us. We can help you. We are a great group of guys. We're all volunteers, and it is one of the best community committees, I think, at the Region of Durham. Thank you if there's any questions.
Thank you very much. Are there any questions from members of council to Mr. Cahoon? I see Councillor Tyler Moore, and you were first.
Thank you, Your Worship, and thank you, Mr. Cahoon, for your presentation and your passion and for your service. Farmers feed cities, right? We should never forget that. How is it with younger people? My daughter goes to Guelph University. A lot of her friends are in the agriculture programs. So are you getting a lot of people that are coming to your farm wanting to work? Or do you have a hard time? Just wondering about employment for young people. What you see, just generally speaking in 2024, is it a passion for young people? Are you getting people coming in, or most of them older?
Most farmers are older. To be really good at farming, you have to have about 35 or 40 crops. Saying that, there is a huge demand for young people in technical roles that are computer literate and able to fix our equipment and do our bookkeeping and do the management of computer things that some of us older farmers are not very good at. Our tractors are run on GPS. They steer themselves, auto steer. All of my tractors do that. It saves me immense amounts of money on fuel and inputs. And finding technicians to service this equipment is very hard. Right now, I have to use some people that drive out from London. It costs me $1,000 to get them in the yard, and probably 3 weeks wait time if I have a problem. I can do a lot of it myself. I've been doing it for a long time, but there are some things I can't do. But if we talk to the equipment dealers and people like that, they are dying for kids to do this, or young people and in these roles. There is lots of opportunities now in the dairy farming and the poultry industries. It's all very computerized, and there's lots of jobs that are available for technically adept people that can work the equipment and do the jobs. Do I have people coming and looking for jobs at my farm? Yes. Usually they're retired men.
Right.
I work with my brother. We are very, very efficient, and the scale and economy of our business has to be that efficient so that we can make a living.
Thank you. Yeah, nice to hear there's an opportunity there for people who want to try something different. Thank you, Your Worship.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. It was as if Buck Winters was in front of us himself giving the presentation. So thank you for that. A question with regards, and I'd like you to elaborate on carbon tax. You mentioned it in your presentation. So I'm going to throw an argument or a question argument out to you. Folks say, well, you get that money back in your carbon rebate check that you're putting out. Can you tell me if it is coming back to you, if it's not, and how it's affecting your business further?
So I do not get a full refund for all the money I spend in carbon tax. I spend money on diesel fuel and carbon tax. I spend money in transportation of my goods out when I hire trucks to do it. I spend carbon tax on that. I spend carbon tax on the natural gas and the electricity that I build. Do I get a full rebate? No, not at all.
What percentage, could I ask? Roughly.
What
Are you even
percentage?
close?
I can't give you an exact I can't give you an exact number of what it costs me. I do know that my fuel bill the carbon tax on my natural gas to dry my 2,600 tons of corn, which is very small. That's 500 acres of corn. That's not very much compared to what we grow in Durham region. To give you a kind of an example, I wouldn't even fill one ring at Reeser's Elevator in Manchester of one of those big bins. I wouldn't fill one ring. And my bill was $3,500, plus HST on top of that. Now, I do get the HST back because I'm a farm business, but yes. The problem I have with carbon tax is, can any of you tell me how much carbon dioxide is in the atmosphere?
Oh, if you're looking at me, sir, no, I cannot. Just be
Can
clear.
any of you tell me?
No.
No. No, there's
what's it-
78% nitrogen, 18% oxygen, and the rest is trace gases. Of that trace gases, 0.04% is carbon dioxide. Of that 0.04%, I guess to put that into scale, that would be like pouring half liter of bottled water into Lake Superior. If the carbon in the atmosphere, the carbon dioxide in the atmosphere gets less than 0.04%, plant life ceases to exist. We are at the low end for making agriculture work in the world.
So let me ask you this, if I may. Would you say that with this, it has been a deterrent for future generations to go on to farming?
For sure, it costs us money and it affects our bottom line and it affects the profitability. I have said this to many politicians and many people in many places, to make agriculture great and make it good, you have to compete on a world market and we have to make it profitable. If it is profitable, the next generation will work. If it is not profitable, they will go find a job where it is profitable. I have farmed, basically, my mom said, since I was 5 years old. I love farming. It is what I do for a business, and I'm very passionate about it. And I love coming here to educate you people about what I love to do.
And we thank you for that. That's wonderful that you've taken the time to do so. We really do appreciate it. Let me ask you about, you made a comment about Oshawa and about port in Oshawa and underutilized. Could you expand on that?
Sure. So in the Port of Oshawa is a federal port, and there is a grain handling facility there, and they moved 6,000 tons of material this year.
6,000 tons?
6,000. A boat holds 23,000 tons,
Okay.
a full boat. They have given, there are some issues that need to be resolved. It is a great thing for this community, for all of Durham Region, and it is being terribly underutilized, and it needs a political push to get it back on track so that we can move our grain through the Port of Oshawa instead of going to the Port of Hamilton or Port of Johnstown or any other ports along the Great Lakes system.
Hamilton's quite far away. Again,
2 hours and 20 minutes
yeah,
by truck,
yeah, more carbon tax.
plus
the further
a
you travel.
3 to 5 hour wait.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate your presentation today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Thank you so much for coming out tonight, Mr. Cohen. Very interesting and information, and I really enjoyed your presentation. Thank you. So on slides 10 to 14, where you talked about various forms of agribusiness, you had them divided into benefits and how you can help. And I'm guessing you means us, or the councils of Durham Region. So I wanted to maybe ask you if you'd like to comment on, there's lots of great suggestions for how we can help. How has that relationship been between DAC and the Durham Region for implementing some of these suggestions?
I applaud what the Durham Region has done with the advice from DAC. They have done some great things with our advice, and they have listened to us. We have been very proactive at educating all of the members of the region and the councils. And this year we've gone on our cross-country tour to each council to talk on Agriculture 101, so I can put faces to the people that I'm working with. Education is key. There is a disconnect between agriculture and population. Years ago, everybody's grandfather or father or family had somebody that farmed. And now that is not the case. And there's a disconnect between that. And it's our job as farmers in this industry to make sure that we get the message out there that your food doesn't come from a grocery store. It comes from the field, outside and around you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
I don't have any other questions, Mayor Collier.
That's a problem.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation. Can you tell me how Regional Council can inform the Golden Horseshoe Food and Farming Alliance about the economic development for North Durham?
How can you inform them? So we have some delegates there. I can't tell you their exact names right at the moment. I'm terrible with names. So the best thing is your representatives that go to the Golden Horseshoe, they can ask DAC for a script, if you would so like. You can ask the Durham Federation of Agriculture for a script. We all have really the same message involved. The Golden, whatever that group is.
Golden Horseshoe.
Yeah, it's a mouthful. They're a bunch of great representatives. I've been part of that team before in the past. They're doing some good work. They have a huge area that they cover with a lot of diversity from Niagara all the way around the greater, and nothing in agriculture is the same. It's a whole bunch of entrepreneurs that have their own ideas. And if they can bring all these ideas together, they're doing a fantastic job. If Allison's here, she works with DAC, Allison DeVos, send your questions to her. We will discuss them at the DAC meeting, and we will get back to you with what you need to say and who you need to contact.
Maybe I should just attend DAC.
You can come to that too. We have a great time on Tuesday nights and the second Tuesday of every month.
Thank you.
That exhausts our speakers list. Thank you very much for your delegation tonight.
Thank you very much.
Moving on to our next delegation, item 5.2, homelessness in Ajax. We have Scott Evans, Ajax resident. Please come forward, sign in. You have 5 minutes. That should change in a second. Here we go.
Am I live? Yep. Okay, good. Good evening. Greetings to the room. Before the timekeeper begins my clock, I wonder if I might address, I guess I should seek the indulgence of the chair on this, if I might address 2 matters.
Well, it's your delegation.
I'm sorry?
It's your delegation.
Oh,
What would you
okay,
like?
fair enough. First is that it appears that it's the wrong title for my presentation is listed in the agenda. I believe the title I put down on the paperwork when I submitted it was Grading Ajax Council's Response to Homelessness in Ajax and Suggestions for Improvement, and consequently, could I request a correction?
That's not something I'm involved in. To the clerk? I mean,
I can amend that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. The second is ask for permission to unshackle my tongue a little. I'm of the street and I wish to communicate honestly some of what the street sees and thinks. The language of the street is a little more colorful than that which normally graces this room, yet if I'm to be as honest and genuine as possible, and if same is what council seeks, then I'll need to speak a little less reservedly than I'd otherwise feel obliged. I'll not be gratuitous with it, and to be honest, I think that if permitted,
let me stop you there.
Okay.
First of all, your time has started. Okay, you're about 2 minutes in. Second, no, you will follow the rules and policy procedure of this court,
I'll
and
cancel.
you will use language appropriately.
Yeah, yeah, no,
Please go.
I'll
We have a
cancel. I
lot
don't-
of people in, stop. We have a lot of people in the audience. You're not offending anybody. Speak in proper, acceptable language, please.
You know, that's why I asked for permission, right?
No, you do not have permission. Go ahead.
Thank you. Well, with 2 minutes gone, I can't complete mine, so I'll have to reschedule for another time. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next delegation, item 5.3, delegation and proclamation, National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City Mosque attack with action against Islamophobia. We have Waqas Syed, President, Islamic Society of Ajax, Kubra Mir, President, Muslim Women of Durham. I need my glasses. And did Rizwan come? Rizwan Mohammed? No, not here yet. Okay. Please come forward. And whenever you're ready, I have 5 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum. I would like to thank Ajax Council for today's meeting on the National Day of Remembrance of the Quebec City Mosque attack and the Day of Action Against Islamophobia. So I'm joined today with Waqas Syed. He's with the Islamic Society of Ajax, and Rizwan, you mentioned earlier, he's on Parliament Hill today. So my name is Kubra, and I recently started my own not-for-profit organization. Let's see, sorry. Page 2. Okay, so what is Islamophobia? So this is a definition from the Ontario Human Rights Commission. Islamophobia can be described as a stereotype, bias, or acts of hostility towards individual Muslims or followers of Islam. In general, in addition to individual acts of intolerance and racial profiling, Islamophobia leads to viewing Muslims as a greater security threat on institutional, systemic, and society level. Okay, so I think, sorry. So this is one of my number one questions that I get from people. When did Muslims come to Canada? So they came as slaves. They also were part of the fur trade. But if we're looking at documented history, James and Agnes Love came from Scotland in 1851. They had one son named James in 1854, who was the first Canadian Muslim to, and later in 1871, Canada had 13 Muslims. So Muslims have been part of Canada for a long time, and they have contributed, and we now represent about 4.9% of the Canadian population. Oops, sorry. Okay. Okay, so in the 1960s, Canada started to allow non-whites people to immigrate to Canada. And in this photograph, this is a family photograph of my husband's side, and the one wearing the bow tie is my husband's maternal uncle, and he's standing here with Malcolm X. So this is the first mosque, and I thought I would show the history of the local history of what's going on in our region, right? And my own personal history is, and I forgot to mention, Malcolm X, after this photograph was taken, a few weeks later, he was assassinated. So this is, we have some tie to the US as well. So, and on my personal side, my father came to Canada in 1969, and he was part of the first wave of South Asians to come to Canada. And so growing up in Canada, my family was mocked. I was beaten up for being different. And so these kinds of presentations really, are very important to me. And I really strive to make a positive impression of Muslims. So I really want to thank Council for allowing me to speak today. And today we are mourning the loss of 6 people. So, we mentioned earlier that 6 people died, 5 were injured, and others are living with trauma. The gunman, the person who did this, pleaded guilty, and he was sentenced to 40 years in life, and now that's been reduced down to 25. So the psychological impact of the Quebec shooting is still being felt in Muslim communities all over Canada. So alarmingly, this tragedy is not isolated. So there have been a series of violent attacks in Edmonton, Saskatoon, Mississauga, and Toronto. And on July 6th of 2021, while walking around their neighborhood, a family of 5 was struck down by a pickup truck. So recently in November, the driver was found guilty and convicted for life for his Islamophobic act. And so what's been left behind is a 9-year-old boy. So he was injured, he recovered, he's the only survivor. In this attack, he lost his parents, his sister, and grandmother. So this is such a tragedy. So, so what is the Canadian government response? So with Islamophobia growing, what's going on? So what they did was they created a standing committee, and what you're looking at was the report that was released on November of 2023. And what they say is that incidents of Islamophobia is a daily reality for many Canadians. 1 in 4 Canadians do not trust Muslims. Canadian leads the G7 in terms of targeting the killing Muslims motivated by Islamophobia. This is not a very good stat. And also, NCCM has stated that Islamophobia and attacks have grown since 1,300% since October. Again, that is a crazy number. So, And the other thing that the federal government has done is they have appointed someone, a Muslim, and I'm so thankful, a female. She's a journalist and a human rights advocate, and so she is now trying to combat Islamophobia. So we're very thankful to the government for starting this, at least a dialogue. And I want to talk about what Ajax response has been. So what we're looking what we're looking at is a picture that was painted by Tasneem Hamid, and it's dealing about anti-Islamophobia and community. So Ajax has been very good, and they have this campaign called Ajax for All. So we love this. And the other thing that Ajax is doing that we like is they created a task force on anti-racism, and they've expanded this to include Islamophobia. So we're very thankful, and we hope that Ajax will continue to combat Islamophobia and to make Muslims feel safe in our homes in Durham. Okay, so this photograph is of Ryan. So Ryan is, what happened was when the Quebec shooting happened, right? He made a sign, he drove to Pickering Mosque, he's never been to a mosque, and he gave out free hugs with his daughter, that's pictured here. So I never met this man. He messaged me, because I volunteer in the community. He says, Kubra, can you help me reach other Muslims? So what I love about this, and I really want to show something positive, is how Muslims and non-Muslims can work together. So this gentleman, he started a website, he started a letter campaign, he went, he really worked hard to make today's date possible. So it's such a nice thing to see someone like an average person just reaching out. He had no connection to Muslims. He had no connection to this, but just an average person making a difference. So this is what I wanted to say is that, a quote from Martin Luther King, and we know that Black history is coming up. So darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. And I'm just going to ask Waqas. He
Ms.
is
Mir?
from Islamic.
Sorry, you're about a minute, you're about 3 minutes over on time.
Okay, I'm
Because we
sorry.
didn't start it for about 2 minutes by accident, so you'll have to wrap up, please.
Okay. Can I show the slide? Here. There, we can just see it. Thank you.
Thank you. Does any member of council have any questions for Ms. Mir or Mr. Syed? Councillor Lee?
Thank you very much, Kubra Waqas, for the presentation and the declaration. Thank you for all the brothers and sisters who came in today to show how important this cause today especially is for Ajax residents and Durham residents. Kubra, there's not a single meeting you and I have where you don't teach me something new, so thank you for that. And that last quote was very fitting. It is a very combative time. It's a very dark time in our world right now, and people are trying to get us angry, and people are trying to find villains when there aren't none. I think, especially in Ajax, and speaking personally, especially in Ward 2, which is the most diverse ward in Ajax, we see diversity as very much a richness, and we
Councillor
see.
Lee, questions?
Yeah, very good. So I was just wondering, what future steps do you think Ajax can be taking? So we're taking some first steps, like you said, with the installation. We have our anti-racism task force. What other steps do you think we can be taking as a town, or residents could be taking themselves?
I had this story told me that a woman was working in a grocery store. She wears hijab, and another person was standing in line, and she noticed that nobody was standing up and going to see the person, the teller. So as people, we can make a difference. So what this woman did is she went up and she went into that line and was served by that person. So you think about this. This woman is working there. She's wearing hijab, a visible, piece of clothing that identifies her as Muslim, and everyone was shunning her. Maybe she'll lose her job. Maybe she, has a family to feed, and, there's a reason why she's working there. So I think we all have opportunities. When we see Islamophobia, when we see someone doing something wrong, say something. Just do that very simple thing. All she did was move over. She went in the line, spoke to the woman, and she saw other people were following. So be that person, be that nice person. And, Natasha, I think she's here somewhere, Natasha Sharma, we are going to be, NCCM has already started a dialogue with them. And hopefully we're going to be working on projects or seeing what we can do. This is not going to go away overnight, right? We have seen a huge spike, like 1,200, like what I said earlier, is ridiculous, right? So hopefully Ajax is on their way. They're doing a great job, and we'll see some future improvements. Oh, sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and our council brothers and sisters, and thank you very much, all the big managers and senior managers here. Mr. Mayor and the council members, you can do a lot of things. And what is happening here that people, they do not have any awareness about Islam, who we are, and I have not seen anything from the town of Ajax. So there has to be more communication, there has to be more advertisement. We want something like during the month of Ramadan, just for the awareness, you can put Happy Ramadan on the buses. So people, they know that we are celebrating the month of Ramadan. But we want to thank you from the bottom of our heart that what you have done today is a great thing for us. It's a great thing. This is the beginning of our relationship, but we have to work together to create this awareness. The problem with this, I have been in this town from the last 25 years. People, they'll still look at me from a different angle. We have been doing a lot of work here, humanitarian work, food, everything we have been doing, but we are not getting that response. We need your help. And Mr. Mayor and the esteemed council members, we have not seen anything on Gaza from you guys. Ceasefire, please. Put out a message, ceasefire. We have lost more than 10,000 children and 20,000 innocent people are gone. 60,000 people are displaced. Please, Mr. Mayor, put out a statement. It will be a big help. Thank you very much. This is what I wanted to say. Thank you, sir.
Thank you for that. Thank you both for continuing to be leaders and setting examples for us all to follow. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Henry.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To both of you, thank you for coming today, for your presentation. I can imagine this was very difficult to stand up here and give a presentation about such hate when you're living it. So I want to commend you because it took a lot of strength to come here today. I am curious, Brother Wakas, with regards to the mosque and the presentation that I saw today, if there has been any heightened around the mosque and with regards to Islamophobia in recent days.
Yeah, Sister Nancy, we received a lot of things on the social media which we ignore, and because it's very common using social media platform for spreading hatred. Because the thing is that there are so many messages, but if anything happens at the masjid, at the mosque, then we inform the police, and then we inform the authorities, and the police comes, and they have been very good with us, and they always try their best to help us. Yes, we feel every day, because our sisters, they are very easily identifiable. They are identified because of hijab.
Yes.
And sometimes, but again, at the same time, I want to thank all of you, especially Mr. Mayor and all those guys. You have been doing a great job. And we are trying our best to integrate in this society by doing great stuff, by donating, by doing humanitarian work. But at the same time, the hate is still there. And we have to work together to eliminate this hate. Whether you are a Jew, or you are a Christian, or you are a Muslim, or you are my brother and you are my sister, and I will stand for you. If anything goes wrong, we will stand behind you, and we'll try our best to protect you.
Well, I know that to be true because you and I were once competitors and we've since become friends many years ago. So
Thank you, sister.
I know that to be true, brother. So I know that to be true. I do want to address the one comment about the buses and just let you know that that is regional. That is not here at the municipal level. But that's something that your councillor, your regional councillor can work with you on.
Actually, no, it's not.
It can't be done?
No, it can't be done.
Then I'm corrected, so we'll leave it at that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. But
Mr. Mayor, you promised me so many times that you will do it.
No, I never did.
No?
That's like the
Please
time
do
that, no, it
help
wasn't.
us, because this is our, one of the, it's a big thing for us. And we do not see any presence in the town of Ajax. Please. The month of Ramadan is something which is very, very big for us, all the Muslims. At least happy Ramadan. And our heart, will pray for you, we'll love you.
Waqas,
Please,
we have made concessions. I mean, remember when I
Okay.
allowed the call to prayer during COVID and things like that?
Yeah,
There are things we can do and things we can't do.
okay.
we're there for you for the things we can do.
Thank you,
Let us
sister.
put it to you that way.
Thank you, sister.
So thank you for coming tonight. I much appreciate it. And I'm sorry that you had to come today, that it had to be this way, that you have to come and speak about this.
100%.
So,
Thank you very
Thank
much
you.
for this time
Peace be
and for
upon
this
you.
presentation.
I do have a proclamation here. The Corporation of the Town of Ajax hereby proclaims January 29, 2024 as National Day of Remembrance of Quebec City Mosque Attack and Action Against Islamophobia, presented on behalf of the Mayor and Ajax Council. So I'd like to present this to you both, and maybe we can do a picture at the front, if that's okay. With council? Okay, moving on to our last presentation, Para Marine Search and Rescue Annual Report and Strategic Plan. Clint Scott, Unit Training Officer and Community Development Officer. Please go ahead.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, council members, staff, brothers and sisters, and members of Ajax. Thank you for this opportunity to present our annual report and our strategic plan as we move forward as part of the unit. We have a long history in the region. I'm going to sort of skip through a couple of the slides relatively quickly because you have seen them over the past couple of years, and it's great to be back for the first time since pre-pandemic days. We have a long history since 1967 supporting the waters here in Durham region, based out of Pickering, supporting Pickering, Ajax, and Whitby. We've gone through a number of iterations, some different vessels and designs on the vessels to our current colors which is the orange and the gray. Our strategic sort of business plan has always favored these 4 pillars: the strengthening of the organization, developing of our crews, ensuring that we are SAR ready with our partners, and then of course planning for the future. We have a board of directors that helps guide and promote our cause. Councillor Bauer is a welcome member of our board. We have members of the local business community and so on and so forth that help guide us through that as well as some internal members from the unit as well. To ensure our SAR readiness, we continue to develop our crews and things like that. I'd like to draw attention to this slide relatively quickly. We've seen an increase over the past couple of years of one search or a couple of searches where there are multiple assets, multiple agencies involved, that unfortunately were not successful. So we are looking at ways of how we can educate and work with other SAR partners, Durham Regional Police, Durham Regional Paramedics, the 3 fire services that we sort of work with as well, on how we can better educate and work with boaters, water goers, and in greater terms about the safeties and the hazards and the dangers on Lake Ontario. If you look at this slide over here, you can see, generally speaking, the numbers pre-COVID were down, which is great. And through COVID, because people wanted to get out on the water, the numbers started trending back upwards again. This is an alarming trend for us, and we're hoping that we're seeing a bit of a downward trend again. A lot of these taskings for us are individuals with sort of inflatables, not necessarily big boats and sailboats and so on and so forth, but recreational boaters that are new to the boating world. This sort of highlights the areas which we do service. The slide with the red lines all over it, that is the waterfront community, pretty much from Toronto Harbour all the way out to Newcastle almost. The red lines are the tracks that we've placed on Lake Ontario. The more formalized squares that you can see there are search patterns from rescues that we have been involved with, and you can see we've gone pretty much right to the US border, and we cover off quite a nice big square swath of Lake Ontario. This slide, it's a snapshot of a report that we present to the region that highlights sort of our numbers, our capabilities, so on and so forth. I'd like to highlight 2 things here. Our vessel availability was down last year a little bit, and our vessel maintenance numbers were up for the year in terms of hours. This is old boat, old engines, and so on and so forth. So we have embarked upon a plan which we're enacting right now to replace the current engines and outdrives on the vessel. That's cost us about $300,000 to get that going. Most of the money that we do receive, whether it's from the region, from donations, or from taskings, or the kind grants from the town of Ajax, Pickering, and Whitby as well, are spent back into the local communities. You can see that about just over 50% of the funds that we generate go right back into the local communities. We have decided to repower the vessel. It was a strategic decision for us. A new vessel, which is still on the cards for us, but the timeline has been postponed. A new vessel would cost upwards of $2 million. By repowering the vessel this year, we find that we may get some longevity out of this current vessel, buying us a little bit more time to raise the funds that we would need to replace that vessel. A couple of years ago, we presented the shortfalls between our capabilities and our SAR partners' capabilities. We have looked at technologies that might be able to address that, and we've applied for a grant for this incredible little device called the Dolphin, which is an unmanned water drone, if you will, that will actually help bridge that gap for as far as the fire departments can get and how close we can get and we're hoping that that's going to solve that problem that we identified a couple years ago. So as I mentioned, we've postponed the plan for a new vessel, buying us a little bit of time. We are looking at some green technology. We believe that that's the route to go. Unfortunately, the development of that technology in the boating community is just not there yet. There are technologies, but it's just not at the capabilities that we would need and that would be sustainable for us at this point in time. So what we're looking for is some guidance from council, from staff members, from the community on how we could increase awareness, obviously through education as well, but also have a greater presence, be a little bit more front of mind. Funding numbers post-COVID are down, unfortunately. I think the entire community, families, everybody is feeling the crunch. So we are looking for ideas. We do plan on expanding our community event portfolio as well to include specific events in each of the communities. And we'd look to participate, as we have in the past, with Mr. Mayor's gala and so on and so forth, and things like that. In the interest of time, I'm going to forego the video, and thank you very much for the opportunity to present this evening, and if there's any questions, I'll happily answer.
Thank you very much. First question, Councillor Tyler Moore.
Thank you, Worship, and thank you so much for the great work you do, Mr. Scott. Boy, when you need you guys, you need you guys. There's no gray area there. I have two questions. Number one, is there a user fee? I don't want to deter anybody from reaching out, but if you run out of gas and all those resources go, just forgot to put the fuel in. Is there? Do you get a bill?
There's no user fee. We are a complete service, completely free service.
Okay. Yeah, just like any police. Also, did you say that it's not the right wording, but unmanned, just from, anyway, no offense. Crafts, like an unmanned craft for rescue?
Yes.
That's going to happen, or?
It's like a life ring with jet engines on it. So
Wow.
Via remote control, we can actually drive it over in rough weather, or get a line to a vessel in distress, or get a line to a person in the water in waters where we wouldn't necessarily be able to go.
From the boat that's
From the
already
boat.
on the water?
Yes.
Wow. That's very impressive. Those are my questions. Thanks so much for the work you do.
Thank you. Councillor Dice.
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation. So you mentioned concerns basically with very small crafts on Lake Ontario, maybe people who aren't prepared and don't understand the lake. And that's been my concern. I see that quite often on the waterfront. Is there anybody responsible for helping to educate people? Because it is a huge lake. It can be very rough, as you know, very deep and very cold if you fall in, even in summer. So my feeling, I don't know if it's yours as well, is we have a lot of people that perhaps are new here and really don't understand how dangerous the lake is.
So, I mean, it's a community education program, I guess. Schools, swim lessons, all of those kinds of things certainly help. You are required to have a boating license when you're operating a vessel on Lake Ontario. A big part of our taskings are those inflatables from Canadian Tire or from Costco, those big floaties, where you're not required to have any license or any training per se. So signage could help, all of those kinds of things.
So basically, there isn't a body that takes any responsibility?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Good evening, Officer Scott. Thank you so much for coming. Great presentation. I really, really enjoy this, my first term as a member of the Para Board, and you really do have a community there, a strong team of volunteers, and the work you do is incredible. So thank you so much for that, and I've learned a lot. So I did have a couple questions. On slide 35, you talked about this broadening SAR partnerships. So you talked about police, fire service, EMS, the Air Force, the Coast Guard, and Joint Rescue Centers. Can you comment to that? How are the relationships? Is that like something regular that happens, or are you trying to grow them?
We have an incredible relationship with our SAR partners. We are constantly training with Air Force assets. We're constantly training with Durham Regional Police. Last year, as the training officer, I reached out to all of the fire departments and started initiating those conversations where we'll do some joint training this year on the water. We train with other CCGA assets across the lake as well. So we really have formed a community with our SAR partners, and we're very proud to call them partners.
That's great. That's wonderful. Thank you. And then the other slide, something else that I learned as a member, when you talked about nearshore capabilities or lack of capability.
Yes.
Slide 42. And maybe just for those who don't know, can you just tell us again about that area?
Sure. So we've identified pretty much in our patrol area, which is at the west side of Pickering all the way to Whitby, that there's in some cases about 600 or a couple hundred feet of water where it's too shallow for our vessel to get in, or there's too many obstacles underneath at the surface of the water that pose a risk to us. And then there's also cliff faces, especially off of Ajax, where the fire department would have a bit of a challenge accessing individuals in the waters there. These challenges create that sort of no-go zone, if you will. And that's what we hope this dolphin, if we're successful with the grant from Firehouse Subs on that, will be able to help us address those kinds of, that gap.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for that. That's a very scary thought, that you could, just a very small area in Ajax where help could not get to you if you needed it. And I think that's a great idea, that dolphin. And I know that the team put together a sponsorship fundraising package.
Yes.
That had the informations for a new vessel and that new nearshore boat, which I'm assuming is all going to be updated.
It's all updated. All we're doing is just pushing the timelines back a couple of years.
Great. Okay. And I know that decision to repower was not an easy one. There was lots of discussions, but you know, I trust that pair knows what they're doing and made the right decision. So thank you very much again for coming. That's all my questions, Mayor Collier.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. And thank you, Officer Scott, for your presentation. This is not an area I know a lot about, and I'm going to admit to that right off the bat. So if my questions seem a little naive, it's because I really don't know a lot about this area. How many of these vessels are there?
So we have one vessel that supports the region. Durham Regional Police has two vessels as SAR partners on the water.
And would you say that your vessel versus the regional vessels are equal in capabilities and equal in staffing for rescue?
That's hard for me to answer that question. Durham Regional Police has their staffing sort of guidelines. We are a team of 50 volunteers, and we operate the vessel on the water Wednesday, Thursday, Friday evenings, Saturdays, Sundays, and public holidays for most of the day on those days. And then we're on call 24/7 outside of our patrol hours. We have done a calculation, and we're with our 50 volunteers and the time that we do put in, that equates to about 4 or 5 full-time employees to the region annually.
50 officers, you said, correct?
50 crew members, yeah.
Crew members. And can I ask, and this is more for the folks at home to get them interested in what you do, the qualifications to do what you do?
Sure. So I'm actually the unit training officer. So great question. Members join us, and all that we ask that they join us with is their pleasure craft operator's certificate, which is their boating license. And within their first year, we ask them to actually achieve their ROCM, their radio communications license. All of the other training we provide in-house. We have a phased program that's provided to us by the Coast Guard Auxiliary, and it's a two-phase program where once they've completed that, they meet Transport Canada regulations for small commercial vessel operator certificate. So we'll actually train everybody through life-saving techniques, through vessel handling techniques and all of that kind of good stuff. And it's generally a 18-month to 36-month program.
And can I ask roughly, and I'm not looking for numbers, but you have persons on your team that are either fire now or police now or ex of either, retired of either?
We've got a few folks on our team that are future firefighters, existing firefighters. We've got some IT folks, we've got some nurses, we've got paramedics, we've got property managers. It's a real eclectic group of folks that come together with a passion for what we do.
And this is all volunteer?
All volunteer.
No one's paid?
Not one single person.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Well, first of all, thank you for everything you do in your team. And great job by all the mayors across the region for recognizing what you do and bringing you in to the fold for the galas to help fundraise. Now, you're saying for this dolphin that you need, is it $20,000?
It was just shy of $20,000, yes. And we submitted a grant to Firehouse Subs Foundation. We hope to hear back positively by the end of February.
And if it's a positive, is it a full grant or partial grant?
Full grant.
Okay, excellent. Well, thank you for coming here today and presenting to us. For all the folks at home watching, hopefully it sheds some
Questions,
light
please.
on the great work you do. Thank you, Mayor Collier.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Sorry, one follow-up question. With regards to fire, and I didn't ask this before, is your team capable of handling like you mentioned about different crafts that you could find without graphs or whatnot, crafts you could find that, ran out of gas or different things. Are you equipped to handle fire on vessels?
We are not equipped to handle fire, and it's not advisable to handle fire. If we have been involved in fire crafts on fire on Lake Ontario, we have heat suppression, so we can access folks that find themselves on a vessel that's on fire. We can suppress some heat and flame and smoke to get them to safety, but we will let the craft burn. Otherwise, it becomes a bit of an environmental hazard if the craft does go underwater.
Sorry, did you say you'll let the craft burn?
Yes.
You'll get the folks to safety and let the craft burn?
Yes.
And then it would sink?
It won't sink. The fire would stop at the water line.
Oh, understood what you're saying. Okay, sorry. Misheard you there for a minute. Thank you. Thank you for all your answers.
No problem.
Councillor Lee.
Very quick question. Weren't you guys on TV recently? Didn't I
Yes,
see
we
you guys on
were.
the
We
news?
were on City TV 2 nights ago, I believe. Yes.
And what were you speaking on? Same type of thing?
Same type of thing. We introduced sort of what happens in the off season. Just because the boat's not in the water doesn't mean that there isn't activity happening right now. So right now we're going through the refit of the vessel with the new engines. And we kicked off our annual training program, in-house training program, a couple nights ago as well.
Great.
So.
Well, anything to put more eyes on the organization. Thanks so much. Thank you, Chair.
That exhausts my speakers list. Thank you for your delegation.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Moving on to items of correspondence, we have moved by Councillor Dye, second by Councillor Tyler Moore, that the report dated January 29, 2024, containing items of correspondence be received for information. Any polls? Councillor Lee? Any others? Councillor Bauer? Any others? 5? Okay, any others? Okay, so that's Items 1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 8, 10, 11, 12, 13 on the balance. Please vote in favor or opposed. Okay, that is carried. Item number 5, Councillor Crawford.
Just in the light of what we were just talking about, this motion basically is the same kind of sentiments, so I'd like to endorse or
Move to
whatever it
endorse?
is we do, yeah.
Do you have a seconder? Councillor Lee. Any follow-up on the endorsed motion? No, please vote.
Thank you.
Number 5. Okay, that carries. Item number 7, Councillor Bauer.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Just a question to staff. Does this have any impact here in Ajax regarding cemeteries or cemetery abandonment? And I'm sure I didn't reach out sooner than 2 seconds ago.
Ms. Andis, maybe?
Thank you. Through the chair to Councillor Bauer. So if the town were to assume any cemeteries that were abandoned, what this motion does is it requests that the province, it requests that the province become the default owner as opposed to the municipality. Currently, the municipalities are default owners. So older cemeteries that become abandoned, the municipality has to take it on, and it is at our cost. What this motion is saying is it is explaining that newer cemeteries do put down a deposit of $100,000 that then gets transferred to the municipality should in the future that cemetery be abandoned, but older cemeteries do not. So like the Hicks Cemetery that we have assumed and take care of, we didn't get any transfer payments to help with that maintenance. So staff don't have any issue with this motion at all.
Okay, thank you. And I think it's a benefit to request that maintenance costs be covered by the province and not by the town. So I would like to motion for us to endorse this, please, Mayor Collier.
Do you have a seconder? Second by Councillor Lee. Well, I just have a follow-up question then, since there's nothing in the speaker's list. Do we have any other cemeteries in Ajax that this would even affect?
There is one cemetery, an older cemetery on Elizabeth Street that our staff have been working with the owner of that cemetery to have it maintained and upkept. But that is a cemetery that in the future could become the town's responsibility.
But how do we go about now trying to collect I'll call it a security from them as we would through a development proposal after the fact?
As far as I understand, we don't have that mechanism currently.
That's what I'm asking. So how would this help us by endorsing this motion?
Well, part of what this motion says is that when cemeteries are abandoned, that the province should assume the responsibility of those as well.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Okay. Anything further? Nope. Okay. Those in favor or opposed, please vote. Thank you. That carries. And finally, item number 9, Councillor Lee. Short-term rentals.
Thank you, Chair. I'm obviously going to move to endorse this. It looks like municipalities across Ontario are starting to clue in on the fact that the only people who really benefit from short-term rentals are corporations and the companies that house, no pun intended, that house these kind of rental properties and make money off them. The province has made it very clear that there's a housing emergency, there's a shortage of stock, and right now we have people who have stock but are just choosing to profit off short-term rentals. They're an inconvenience to the communities, and more importantly, I think the province needs to step up and legislate just how we have short-term rentals in our municipalities. Everybody's doing a piecemeal right now. Toronto has some rules from Mississauga, from Hamilton. We need a strict guideline, and if housing is as much of a priority as they say that it is, then they should absolutely be in support of this. So I'd move to endorse.
So you've spoken to it, but do you have a seconder to get it on the floor? Councillor Tyler Moore. Anything further? Councillor Henry, do you need to speak to it? Oh, you disappeared. Go ahead.
Thank you. Yes, it's funny that this came up because just today, Regional Councillor Lee and I were talking about this with the SMT team, I'm getting that right, with regards to a letter we received with the funding grant and what we're going to be doing with that money and advocacy for some framework around short-term rentals. So this is something that we often get in Ward 2 questions a lot about, emails, calls, messages, and had my colleague not seconded, I definitely would have, because we do need some framework around this. And without provincial framework, we can't get funding. Without funding, we can't be able to control it. So we need that funding shifted to the municipality, and we need that framework sooner than later. Thank you.
Anything further? No, please vote. All right, that carries. Moving on to reports, there are no community affairs and planning. GGC, item 7.2.1, January 22nd, 2024, moved by Councillor Henry, second by Councillor Dies, that the General Government Committee report dated January 22nd, 2024 be adopted. Any questions, comments on the GGC report? Nope, those in favor? That is carried. No advisory committee, no departmental reports, or any regional council reports? Very light week. Is that a no? Councillor Lee.
Just very quickly, at Community of the Whole, there was a presentation, thank you for Regional Councillor Crawford reminding, on the mental health diversion teams that the City of Toronto has, other municipalities in North America have, and the region is contemplating their version of it. So for those of you who don't know, instead of sending police to a mental health crisis or a mental health call, we could divert it to perhaps mental health professionals. DRPS came, they shared some of the reservations. So I think right now the takeaway is that the Health and Social Services kind of team will take all that feedback and present something to council to either utilize or not. And I very much am of the side of, I think it's something that's very useful. And with the uptick of mental health cases across the region, across the province, across the country, it is more imperative than ever that we have a service like this. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Dies?
There it is. Thank you. Just adding to that, and I think the region's cognizant of the fact that it is very successful to have mental health teams go out. They've just increased the number of teams that are working with the homeless now, and they're it's like the PCOP, but they call it the mental health team, and they go out in pairs and they're working with the homeless with mental health issues, and it's making a huge difference. So we're looking forward to, you know, the Health and Social Services are looking forward to moving on with some of these initiatives that are coming forward and hopefully make a dent in some of the issues with mental health, because it really is in crisis right now. Thank you.
Further? I'll just comment on that. I was actually surprised. I couldn't stay to the end of the meeting because it went long. I was actually really surprised that after all of that, it wasn't, I thought this would be a fairly, sorry, did you put your mic on after me? Yeah, it's okay. Okay. I thought, I won't say no brainer, but I thought it was a pretty easy one. I mean, 30% of all police calls are non-police related. We know it's all mental health or addiction or homeless related for the most part. And anything we can do to try and alleviate that and get our officers back on the road where they need to be and get the proper help to those that are suffering mental health crises, I thought would be a very simple, quick conversation. But after 4 hours, I had to leave the meeting and go to some others. So I'm eager to hear what they come back with. I was not happy when I spoke with the regional chair and the regional CAO, and they told me that DRPS was not very not supportive, what's the right word? They weren't playing nice when it came to this. It was being difficult, and I thought, you know, that's not, this isn't where we start talking about, you know, some of the other internal workings. This is for the good of the region, and I think we need to kind of get moving on that. So I've had that discussion as well, so I do look forward to this coming back. Councillor Crawford.
I just would say that I think the $10 million number that came out was kind of choking a bit. But what I wanted to point out, and I'm sorry, Councillor Dyes, for jumping on your health and social services, but I just wanted to talk about the 24-hour round service that is now on the streets right now. So there's teams that go out, I think it's 12-hour shifts they go out. And as of the meeting on, I think it was the 11th, they'd only had like 4 or 5 days, and they were very excited about the outcomes of their outreach, and it's amazing. So we have teams that are on the street 24 hours a day, servicing those that either choose not to be in a shelter or are not in a shelter during whatever time of the day it is. So it's really good news, and just wanted to let everyone know that that was happening.
Any questions on regional council reports? No, I had the resolution moved by Councillor Henry, seconded by Councillor Crawford, that the regional council reports of January 29, 2024 be received for information. Those in favor? That is carried. Moving on to business arising from notice of motion, we have two. These require 2/3 motion to suspend the rules of procedure. The first one is creating safer Ajax streets. Second one, promoting stable and sustainable municipal finances. Moved by Councillor Crawford, second by Councillor Bauer, that the rules of procedures be suspended to allow the introduction of two motions without notice. Questions on the motion to suspend the rules? No? Those in favor? Are we waiting for a vote? There you go. All right, that carries. So these are two motions that came sort of at the last minute, so I'll just speak to them very, very quickly. The first, creating safer streets in Ajax, I'll just read the therefore, is that all current and future community safety zones be approved for the ASE program. Due to capacity limitations, only ASC locations from Addendum 1 shall be added to the ASC program schedule. 3, transportation staff with support from additional departments as required complete the following work associated with the ASC program. Create an ASC camera deployment schedule and implement by the end of June this year. Permanent signage be installed at any unsigned locations on the deployment schedule at a cost of up to $50,000 allocated from capital contingency reserve. Increase the annual ticket limit to $15,000 charges or higher, and increase the hours of camera operation as required. D, report to the appropriate meeting of council or committee 1 year after implementation of the new ASC camera deployment schedule, including but not limited to the number of photos and charges, program costs, and revenue. And item 4, transportation staff with support from additional departments as required, design and implement a new radar message board program by the end of June 2024, utilizing existing equipment on local roads and with councillors to recommend 1 location per ward. And I'll just, this is moved by myself, second by Councillor Tyler Moore, and I'll just speak to it quickly. Last June, I believe it was, this council approved the expansion of, I think it was up to 32 or 35 community safety zones from our original 12 or whatever it was. However, there was no mechanism to actually get the automatic speed enforcement to be used in those new community safety zones. It was still under the old bylaw, to my understanding. So these changes are basically to allow, to supplement and to allow the expansion of ASC into these new community safety zones. We couldn't do all of them because there's just not enough time, months, and staff to be moving them around that much. So the list is down to, I believe it is 29 or 30. That doesn't mean it can't be amended at a later date. So the changes that are here are to do that. I questioned as to why can't we just move the signs. It's more cost effective for us to put up the signs required under the Highway Traffic Act for 90 days notice and whatever at each location than it is to have staff moving them around the town as we move the cameras. I will say, the budget we just did that I brought forward, I had removed the $100,000 a year for traffic calming because it was ineffective. And so that money is, you know, half this to do this for something that we know is effective. So I don't see this having much of a budget impact, but this is coming after the fact. We also heard from Deval, I don't remember what meeting it was, that the Joint Processing Center has allowed up to, I think it was 5 times more capacity than what we were allowed. So as you all know, we pay for these machines 24/7, 365, but we could only run them 2 hours a day based on the current cap put on by the Joint Processing Center. But we know that was increased. So again, this up to 15,000 charges represents that increase that we can now do and get them running more. And to the final, reporting back to council with the, with the current message boards, there's nothing saying that the message boards have to be located with the automatic speed enforcement. Okay, we just did it that way. By doing it this way and dividing those up, that allows each councillor to basically move that around in their ward where they need it at their discretion, limited discretion. We're not moving it every week, but I don't know what the schedule is, but if you know of a problem area, it allows you to move that. They are somewhat effective when they're first put in, but they're not effective long-term, right? They have an immediate slowdown where we know automatic speed enforcement is good long-term. And finally, the reporting back. I want to know exactly what this is. It's not about making money. This is not a cash grab. Currently, we don't receive any of the ticket revenue if anybody's watching this online. This is not a cash grab. This is about community safety. And this is the one proven method, 40+% effective at slowing cars down on our municipal streets. So we're expanding the service, running the cameras longer, and as far as I'm concerned, if it pays for itself, I'm very happy. And I'll leave it at that. I'll ask Councillor Tyler Moore if you want to speak as a seconder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for including me in this motion. I love the name of it, Creating Safer Ajax Streets. That's kind of the beginning, middle, and end of it. It isn't a cash grab, but it's a mechanism that, thankfully, we can blanket more streets in our respective wards with my local and regional council colleagues. So I'm very, very happy to see this, and it creates activity, it creates action. Our residents don't necessarily ask for anything in particular, they just ask for something to be done. It's usually, you know, the end result. And this is great. This is great news. Happy to support. Thank you.
I will point out, we are already paying for these. There's no additional cost. So this is just making better use. Councillor Henry?
Thank you. So, Mr. Mayor, I would like to ask some questions on this because it is walked onto the floor and there wasn't a lot of time to look into this. So, with regards to the Amendment 1 that you've listed here, I've gone ahead and highlighted according to ward so I could get a good look at how many streets per ward and understand what you're asking us to support. With regards to the rotation of the 3 cameras, does this motion speak to, or is your intent that each ward will have 1 camera that will stay in their ward?
To answer your question, Councillor Henry, when we went through the list, I didn't think at all about ward. Didn't even cross my mind. I looked at the streets that were internal, because there were several streets that we put on here that I considered cash grabs. There were streets with no houses on them. There were streets that really, you know, I have never got a phone call about speeding issues. There's no schools. And I didn't feel that those fit. So the ones that aren't here are the ones that were like that real, like Lower Harwood, for instance. I mean, we never get any complaints about Lower Harwood.
I realize that, but that's not answering my question. My question is, the actual machines, we own 3 of them, and there are 3 wards. Will 1 machine be allotted per ward, like 1 for Ward 1, 1 for Ward 2, 1 for Ward 3, within their street rotation? Is that what you're suggesting?
If you read, I don't know which one it is, item, there, 3A, create an AAC camera deployment schedule and implement by the end of June. So I don't have the answer for that because that implement schedule has not been done yet.
So you're leaving that up to department discretion?
Well, I would say I don't know how they're gonna devise this, but I would say we have a ASE coordinator. I would leave it up to them to figure out where these have the most need and figure out what that rotation is. It's not something I'm involved in. So yeah, that's what 3A does, directing staff to create the camera deployment schedule. So I can't answer your question specifically by ward. Will every camera stay in every ward specifically? Because I just don't know. I think that was always the intent. There may be times when there's 2 in Ward 3, and there might be times with the 2 in Ward 2. I don't know. Yeah.
So the reason that I'm asking this, Mr. Mayor, is because currently I do get a lot of calls, and I have worked with Mr. Pandia over the last year and brought all the calls to him for him to answer because he is the expert, and where traffic calming measures should be, and folks are waiting for them. So when I look at this list and go through the rotation, the reason I'm pointedly asking this question is because the first round, if we have 3 cameras, would be Ward 3, Ward 1, Ward 1. The next round would be Ward 1, Ward 1, Ward 1. Then the next
Sorry,
round,
this is just an alphabetical list. This is not in any order other than alphabetical. So this is not the rotation.
that's what I'm trying to, that's what I'm asking.
No, this is just an alphabetical list of the community safety zones.
So is there any way to commit in this motion that a camera stay in each ward, one of these ASE machines stay in each ward? And go
Well-
through that rotation of that ward?
I hear what you're saying. I don't want to tie the hands, but Ms. Andis, can you take that under advisement, pass it on to Deval, that is the intent? I don't want to start wordsmithing and amending, but the intent is to keep 1 in each ward and keep them rotating. Is that fair? Is that okay, Councilor?
That's very,
Okay.
yes, thank you. That does help solve a lot of the problems that, with regards to that concern.
But
Now,
understand, that is not what happens today. Under the current program, there are times when there's 2 cameras in one ward and not 1 in another.
I do understand that,
Okay.
but currently today, we also have different traffic calming measures, which we've taken away.
No, the traffic calming will stay. The only thing that's been taken down in the fall for winter is the bollards. They are reinstalled in the spring.
But correct me if I'm wrong, but we will not be installing any new, correct?
Not in new locations, but the current ones maintained.
And that's why I asked this question, because, Mr. Mayor, currently we have a list of streets where residents had asked, and Mr. Pandia was working on where they would be. So now I have to go back to those residents and tell them, that's not happening now, but we do have these ASE machines, which I do support, and I know that you've been trying to get this through council, I believe, since you were a ward councillor, and I do support what you're trying to do. I understand why you're trying to do it. It does make sense. But I need to be able to go back to the residents and tell them, what's happening with this. So I wanted to know, with regards to the revenue that this will cost, because we just did a budget, and I understand you took 100,000 out for the future traffic calming areas. And you're asking for 50,000 to be put back in, which it's a small.
Well, no, this will be handled through the capital contingency reserve. This won't affect the budget. The budget is the budget. This is going to come from the capital contingency, was meant to fill any gaps with interim small items.
Thank you for the clarification. I know it says it here, but when you mentioned the 100,000, thank you for that clarification. So can I ask roughly what we are expecting to make back on this?
I have no idea. I have no idea. It's up to 15,000 charges. We could have 5,000, we could have 10, I don't know. Right now, we receive nothing. The region reimbursed us a little bit for our actual costs, which originally were, I don't even remember what they were, but we received nothing because it all goes through the provincial court system, which is at the region, and the money, I've asked several times, where does it go? And the only answer I can come up with is up. We just don't know where it goes. But with our new AMPS program, which is coming, hopefully we've been a bit delayed. I have a letter going, I disapproved it today, it's going tomorrow, asking the Solicitor General, what the heck, like, you wanted us to do these AMP systems, the municipal system, and we've been waiting since September, our application. Once that happens, yes, then the revenue will start flowing to the town. And like I said, I'm just happy if it breaks even. I don't see this.
That's what I was getting at. Do you think it'll break even? That's what
I
I
would
was
love
getting
it to
at.
break even.
Yeah.
You know, just like everything, non-tax revenue is very important, like our permanent parking system down at the lake. You know, we make a small profit on that. It's worked well for us. Other municipalities have copied it. But yeah, I'm quite happy if it breaks even because it's about community safety. It's not about developing revenue in this case.
100%, but I just hearing what I heard about, and I understand it's coming from the reserve, but hearing everything we heard recently with regards to the budget and people are strapped and whatnot, any little change, it's important to have this open dialogue now so the folks at home understand exactly what's going on. So thank you for the indulgence there, and I'll be happy to support. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Bauer.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. So 2 questions, I think. I just want to clarify and confirm that the existing ASC streets are remaining in the rotation, so.
That is my understanding, Ms. Meredith. Okay, yes.
Okay. And this new list of 28 new streets, of which 6 are from Ward 3, you picked them, or was this with guidance from the Transportation Department?
I was asked and I gave my picks. I don't know if these are actually them, but how are these devised?
Through the chair, just to provide some clarification, there was 15 originally, and then council approved 24 in June, 24 community safety zones. What we've done is we've combined those, so 24 and 15, so 39 new, there would be 39 ASC sites, but we only have 3 cameras, so it's impossible for a rotation of 39. So we worked to, with the mayor and with transportation to get that number to just less than 30, I believe. It's 28 sites. So there are a few from the original 15 that are not included in this. I just wanted to clarify that.
Yep.
Okay, so this is a new revised list.
This is like, they're all ASC streets, right? We're gonna, so 15 plus 24 is 39. But because we only have limited cameras, we've reduced our deployment schedule to only go to 30 sites.
Okay, so, and there are 28 sites on this list?
Yes, 28,
Okay.
yeah.
So then I want to know, why is Ward 3 less than 22% of the entire list of ASC deployment?
I'm not sure what the original number would be out of the original 15. I'd have to go back and discuss that with transportation. I'm not sure if it was ever looked at from a ward perspective. Even when we're talking about the deployment schedule as well with these cameras, I'm not sure if it was that was ever the priority, was to look at it from a ward perspective. It was only about what streets required it, what streets, transportation had identified as important, and where we needed to place these cameras. It's about the safety of the streets, not by ward.
Let me give a quick example, Councilor Bauer. So one of them was Lambard Crescent, one of the approved, because there's a school south of the park, which I went to, I don't know, but it's been there a long time. If you know what Lambard Crescent is, it's
Tiny little
I don't know,
street.
200 meters long.
Yeah.
In my mind, looking at this, putting a speed camera on a street that's got a sharp bend, goes about 200 meters and has another sharp bend, didn't make a lot of sense to me.
It's right beside Southwood. It's right in front of
It's right across from Southwood,
Public
but it's
School.
not a street where people are going to be getting over 50 kilometers an hour because there's just physically not enough room.
Understood.
So I took that one off.
No,
because it didn't make sense,
With
right?
respect, I understand that. My question, and with respect, I would disagree with Director McClarty that it was never about safety among all wards. Like, it is, of course, safety within our town, but the original deployment list was fairly equal among all 3 wards, and even the deployment of cameras was pretty equal. It does happen now, Councillor Henry, where one ward will get 2 cameras and another ward will not. However, it is all about safety, so the cameras do rotate and come around. So my concern is, we now have 28, and I know the mayor has said it can be amended, and 6 of them are from Ward 3, and Ward 3 is a pretty large ward, and we're not... Thank you very much. So I just wonder about, and I will say, the fairness of the program. We are trying to be safe for the entire town. So I don't agree with 21.4% being Ward 3.
Okay, fair comment. I'll just try and address that, pretend it was a question.
Thank you.
It was never about trying to specifically split up. It was where the areas were identified as being the most problem areas. Councillor Lee's quite right. There are better drivers in South Ajax from my experience driving around. It's a completely different kind of layout. Also, it's a more established, older neighborhood, less schools, less type of thing. So this is not perfect. I'm never going to say it's perfect. This is making the best of what we have. There's nothing saying we can't let this run for a year or whatever the rotation is and then look at redoing it based on the current things, because we may solve some of the problems that we have in some of the areas and be able to relocate those to other areas.
Sure.
Okay, so I won't say it's perfect, it's not, but it's what we have for now based on the locations that council approved in June.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. When you decided to cut, for example, Lombard or any other street, did you ask or require feedback from Transportation Department or from the people who analyze those traffic studies of the streets that we submit to Department to see if that made sense in a stat?
I see Samantha Patterson on here. I assume she's on because she has a comment, so I'm going to ask her that question because I don't know.
Thank you, Mayor Collier.
Ms. Patterson?
Through the chair, I'll just add, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Through the chair, I'll just add that all the streets that are on the list are on the list of community safety zones that were previously approved by council. That is how we came to that original list of community safety zones, and then this list of 28.
But the question was staff consulted with the ones that we didn't put on the list?
So through the chair, two things. One is the manager of transportation did note that there were some streets that weren't priorities when we went through this process. So yes, the manager was involved at that state and gave us some direction as to where we would want to focus if we had to prioritize down to 28 streets. The list was also shared with planning as well.
Great. So how many, and I should have checked this myself, but I didn't have time because the motion came late. How many community safety zones or streets from Ward 3 have been cut from the list?
I don't have that number.
I'll have to follow up with this information for council. I just don't have the numbers off the top of my head.
Okay, thank you. Yes, please, I would like to.
Yes.
And I think this is a wonderful motion because, of course, community safety is paramount. We all talk about that all the time. I fully support that notion of we need to be safe. What I don't support is the clear absence of Ward 3 streets that should be on this rotation list. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Crawford?
Thank you. So clearly Ward 1 has the worst drivers in Ajax because we seem to have the most streets. Did you took McGill off the list? Because that was the strongest red light camera. It's in front of a community center, and clearly they're speeding on the street.
You're talking about in front of the McLean Center.
Center, yeah.
Yes, because it had been there for 3 rotations.
Because it works.
Well, but just beside it, Coles has 2 schools where there wasn't one.
But we've proven has no speeding.
But Councillor Crawford, it's not fitting with what we decided as a council community safety zones would be, which is the school zones and that type of thing. So there's one in front of Eagle Ridge School on Delaney. There was one in front of McLean Center, and there's another one on Carrison.
Because they all speed.
In front of Terry Fox School.
Yeah.
That's 3 on one street.
Yeah.
We only have 3 cameras that we have to rotate all around. So since that one has had its run for the last couple of years and has been there a few times, right around the corner, Coles, we'd have a lot of complaints about Coles because there are 2 schools right there, but it wasn't on the list. The one in front of Terry Fox School, I suggest to be removed from the list because we're doing one next door to it on the other street, which is Hibbard. Right? Fletcher, sorry, Fletcher. So there was a little bit of thought put into it, because it's not perfect, but that one in front of the McLean Center was one that I would call a cash grab.
No,
Because there's
I
no
call it
school.
speeding.
Okay, well.
It's not a cash grab, because it's not, if it's a cash grab, people wouldn't be getting well, if you, oh my gosh.
I don't know
have
the
this guy,
stats on the
This guy
tickets.
I know says he's at 500 deep into the red light cameras, not in Ajax. And I said, have you ever considered not speeding?
Right,
That would solve your problem right there.
right.
So if you're speeding, you're gonna get a ticket. That's the whole idea about the speed cameras. Anyway, enough of that. I disagree with that decision, but that is obviously happening. The speed boards, I also believe that the speed boards work in the absence of the speed cameras. And if I had my way, we would have more speed boards on streets permanently. They record 100% of the time, all the time, giving proper data so that when you get a camera on there, you know exactly when the speeding happens. I would suggest it probably doesn't happen during school hours because it's too congested with people parking on the road. So it's probably happening at a different time. So I believe that we should have more of those radar message boards, because in the absence of a camera, it still makes me, on McGill, slow down when I hit 45. I've never had a ticket, but that message board does.
Technically, the speed limit is 40, you shouldn't have to slow down.
That message board works, is what I'm saying. And I think that we should have more of those. I know they're expensive, but I believe that they work in the absence of the camera. That's my comment.
And I would be happy to consider that for the next budget process. Yeah. Can you press your button? You turned it back on. Councillor Dice, you're next.
Thank you. I agree with that. The speed boards do work when they're moved. They're there for a bit, they go for a bit, they come back and they're a surprise. So they do work. I share Councillor Bauer's concerns about South Ajax. It is a really it's a big ward. And it goes far to the east where we have new developments happening. And we get complaints about Lake Driveway, which is not on the list. We get complaints about Pickering Beach Road, Choke Point Road, which is badly lit. Cars race down. So there needs to be, I think we need to look a little bit better at what streets we really have to do and get some information from the transportation experts who live with this every day and hear the complaints from residents every day and from us. So, you know, I don't want to rush into something that's going to, you know, restrict what we do moving forward. I think we all want to do some more traffic calming initiatives, absolutely, and this is something we can go with, but having just the detailed list of roads is problematic until we get some more information. Thank you.
Again, I'll pretend there's a question there and I'll try and answer it, because I got something from staff here, they've done the math, and there is only one street removed from Ward 3. Okay. However, there wasn't as many streets added, which is why there's a discrepancy. Okay, there was more community safety zones approved across the town, but not as many in Ward 3 as it seems. So it wasn't intentional to reduce because only one was taken away. That's the information I have. I'll just reiterate, this is the list for today. This is not permanent. We can amend this as need be. And we'll have Deval be monitoring the areas and the complaints. And if it was up to me, I've said this before, I'd make the whole town a community safety zone and we could just move them around wherever we needed, but we can't do that. The Highway Traffic Act does not allow us to do that. So this is what we have for now. Hopefully you can support it. Councillor Bauer. I was
Thank you,
afraid
Mayor
this was going to
Collins.
spark more, but go ahead.
No, it's good questions. Thank you for getting that information. It makes a difference to me. And thank you for committing to having a list that can be amended as needed. So then I ask for the commitment. I think you mentioned in the motion, is it an annual report that will come? regarding the 1 year after, so 1 year after implementation, there'll be a report. So at that time, we could make amendments as needed. And then going forward, could we have a timeline of when we would make amendments?
I imagine we can.
Okay. So let's, yes, we can, yes, we will,
I will say
Okay.
yes, we can.
and yes, we will.
Yes, we will.
Okay, so I just have to wait for 1 year.
In
To
1
see-
year, this could be so effective, we might get 3 more cameras. Who knows?
Yeah.
I don't know.
No,
I
no,
don't
just
have
want
a
to make
crystal ball.
sure I'm giving away, 80% of the deployment of ASCs to not Ward 3. So I just want to make sure that I have commitment.
Well, I could argue that nobody else has paid permit parking system, and, but
Oh,
anyway,
you
let's
mean at the
not go there.
waterfront? Get a waterfront and you can also have paid
Let's
permit
not go
parking.
there.
But thank you very much, Mayor. I appreciate the accommodation.
Councillor Crawford, you need to get back.
I was
in.
so bothered about the McGill, I forgot my question.
Oh, my God. Well, that's on you.
Sorry. My question was around, at AMO, we were talking about the ASC cameras, and we were talking about transparency.
Yep.
And that municipalities really need to list when they're moving their cameras around, especially as your streets become more bigger and you potentially have more cameras. So my question is to, I guess, to Director McClarty?
Ask your question, and I'll figure out who it's to.
Around transparency and having a list of where the cameras will be, and that we are advising people how long they will be on a street. Because I know the region lists when they are moving their cameras, because I know the police look to see where they are when they're out there on the streets.
I don't think we're doing that. We already have to put up a 90-day warning for everybody. We're not going to be putting something out to warn people where they are outside of what we're required to do under the Highway Traffic Act. I mean, the police don't put up a sign saying no, the police don't put, if they're doing speed, they don't put up a sign warning people. They just catch people. They got a 90-day warning. We're spending $42,000, I think it is, for signs to put up because we have to warn people to not break the law. Councillor Samantha Patterson's back on here. Sam?
I'm going to take this question. It's
Okay.
Christy. Through the chair, we have committed to posting all 39 locations and not the schedule. So we will be transparent with identifying those streets that have been designated community safety zones as well as ASC streets. So that information will be up in about a week, but we won't be posting the schedule at this time. So 39
We're
is the
going to
total,
post them all.
list them all.
We need to stop talking because we're generating more questions.
Okay.
I don't see anybody else on the speaking list. Let's vote quick. Thank you. Sure. No problem. The next one, promoting stable and sustainable municipal finances, moved by myself, second by Councillor Crawford. And this comes out of AMO. So actually, you know what? I'm going to be quiet. I'm going to let Councillor Crawford speak to this as a seconder because this is basically This is endorsing a recommendation from AMO. They've asked municipalities to pass this motion. So all we're doing is just bringing it, and I'm asking Ajax Council to support it. The motion basically is that the province of Ontario commit to undertaking with the Association of AMO a comprehensive social and economic prosperity review to promote the stability and sustainability of municipal finances across Ontario, and this be copied to all our MPs, MPPs, and AMO. And just quickly, it's absolutely unfair that Toronto gets a deal and all the rest of us do not. And I don't know how to make that any more clear. If the province is going to give Toronto a special deal, then they shouldn't be surprised when all the rest of us kind of want the same treatment. And that's what this is doing, is asking that the province commit to undertaking with AMO a comprehensive social and economic prosperity review. I'll leave it there. Councillor Crawford, do you want to speak to it as a seconder?
AMO, I was at AMO over the weekend, and they were just saying there's already been a few municipalities, obviously, that have endorsed this. And, you know, it's just strength for them. If we all do this, then it speaks volumes to the province. So I agree with every word he said.
I do chair a municipal finance committee at Ontario Big City Mayors, and we're also making this recommendation at the next Big City Mayors meeting. Councillor Henry?
Thank you. I noticed, Regional Councillor Crawford, that Minister Calandra was there recently. Was this broached with him, discussed with him? And if so, was there any?
Go ahead.
Can you show me? Basically, all we were doing was bleeding on him about Bill 23. Like this
Unrelated.
did not really come up at all. He was there for 35 minutes, and basically anybody that had anything to talk about was around Bill 23.
Understood. Okay, thank you. Sorry, do we know how many other municipalities are bringing this forward?
Before, I said we were bringing it forward, and there had already been 2 or 3 that had done it, and it was on everyone's agenda to do it. Yeah.
Thank you.
I'm on the Big City Mayors group chat, and a lot of them are doing this, but we're just waiting for that recommendation to come out of the special finance. There you go.
Who uses those games?
Okay, time to vote. Pretty sure that carries. Yes, that carries. Okay. Any other? No, there's no other notice motion. Is there any notice motion? No. Moving on to bylaws, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Do we have any polls on bylaws? Councillor Bauer?
Thank you, Mayor Collier. 03-2024 and 07-2024, please.
07. Any others? Okay, hearing seeing none. Moved by Councillor Lee, second by Councillor Dyes. The bylaw is numbered 02-2024 to 10-22-24 be read a first, second, third time and passed, excluding items 3 and item 7. Those in favor? Those are carried. Councillor Bauer, on item 3, 03-2024, amending bylaw for the monetary of the AMP system. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Collier. Yes, I just had a question about, I saw that there is a list of, I don't know what that would be, infractions and then penalties. So I just wanted to confirm, are we raising ticket prices as a result of this AMPS program?
Ms. Cooper?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor, to Councillor Bauer. So I will say the main purpose of this bylaw and the one that follows it is to give delegated authority to me as CAO to basically establish the launch date for AMPS. And the purpose of that is, as you'll recall my email and the mayor's comments earlier tonight about the delay in obtaining an MTO approval, and we just want to make sure we're ready to hit go on this as soon as that approval rolls in. So that's the main purpose of the bylaws. But you are correct, in this bylaw, we are proposing 2 adjustments to the fines in the schedule. They are for interfere with snow removal and stops while inclement weather and road clearing are occurring. So we're proposing to raise those fines from $60 to $100. And I did send an urgent email to council about this, and I hope you'll accept my apologies. This was an oversight. I meant to send council an explanatory email outlining the reasons for these changes when the agenda was published, but I neglected to do so. So I'll just give you that information now. So this arose from primarily in the mayor's meetings that we have weekly. We talk about, as the winter season approaches, some of the challenges that we have with snow removal that arise from illegal on-street parking. And as a result of those conversations, we took a look at what our fines were and how they stack up against other municipalities. And we were looking primarily at the York Region municipalities, which tend to be quite effective in managing this problem, and noticed that our fines are quite low compared to them. So the purpose of the proposed adjustments is really just to create a stronger disincentive for the types of parking behaviors that are causing interference with snow removal. And so that's what's before you tonight. But I do appreciate that you didn't have that information until right now. So I think this is a logical change. It's supported by the staff that have all reviewed it, and I think supported by our benchmarking of other municipalities. But if council requires a little bit more time to contemplate it or ask some questions, we could certainly see this deferred to next month.
Okay. Thank you very much, Director or Deputy CAO Cooper. Thank you. I just wanted to confirm. I wasn't sure if we were increasing, and that was important for me to find out, so I appreciate that. And that is my only question about this bylaw,
Okay.
Mayor Collier.
Can I get a seconder on item 3, please? Anyone? Anyone? Councillor Tyler Moore? Anything further? No. Please vote. Carries. Moving on to item 7, amendments to bylaw 50-2023, the council procedural bylaw. Councillor Bauer.
Thank you very much, Mayor Collier. So this, I remember when this came up in a previous meeting, and it talks about changing the time of our CAP and council meetings from 7 p.m. to 1 p.m. And at that time, both Regional Councillor Dyes and I spoke in opposition of that change. And it struck me after the meeting, of course, one of the reasons that Regional Councillor Dyes gave was, it really impacts people's ability based on whatever their personal situation is to be able to take on this type of role. And she specified single parents who have full-time jobs. And it didn't hit me until after I went home that she was talking about me. So I can honestly say in 2018, when I considered running for this position, that it stood out to me the time commitment between my full-time job, my job as a mother, and could I do this job as well? And my expert advisors said, well, most of the meetings and things you can do are at night or on the weekends, so you can keep your full-time job, because the salary for a local councillor is not sufficient to have as just one job. So that really, really helped me, influenced my decision to do it. And I am very lucky to work for an employer who allows me that flexibility for my council days, which are unpaid hours when I don't work there, so that I can work for the town. So it might seem like a very minor change, 2 meetings a month from 7 to 1, but it's a huge impact. And I really think it sends the wrong message to other residents of our town who might consider running for this position in the future, that if you have to say no just because of a daytime meeting, because your schedule is so tight or your personal situation, I just think that's wrong. And it's the wrong message for us to send. I know 7 o'clock meetings can be difficult. I know, and we go on for hours sometimes, like tonight. But fundamentally, I just don't agree with changing those meeting times for those reasons. So I wanted to speak that again. I didn't get to say that the first time around. And I don't support this. I don't know that if I wanted to ask for this to be reconsidered, that I would get the support. But I do want to put it out there that I think we are sending the wrong message to residents for people who work full-time, whether they want to run for this position or just come out to a meeting after work to see what happens. So I really just want to make that clear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. And I appreciate Councillor Bauer's comments. She's speaking from her lived experience, and it should not be taken for granted. I do caution, however, I think various people have various working conditions. Councillor Tyler Moore, for example, works evenings, and so it's like the inverse could absolutely be true. I think public service is absolutely a privilege, and I don't think we can really cater to everybody and fit everybody's lifestyle, however it may or may not be. I think from a practical standpoint, we are seeing later and later meetings across the region. I think Whitby had 2 or 3 meetings go into 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and it's absolutely preposterous to think that we are making our best decisions at 2 a.m. in the morning. That is asinine. And more importantly, there's like some savings from staff time and enabling staff to have those same kind of privileges you had mentioned out, like spending time with your family, getting home at a reasonable time for daycare, et cetera. I do think the positives outweigh the negatives, but ultimately I really appreciate you bringing up your experience and sharing that with council. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Dice.
Well, thank you. You know, and we've been around this block before, and I thank you for your patience. But really, part of the issue is if you paid a living salary to a local councillor, then they would be able to do it as a full-time job. But it's never been considered a full-time job, even though the population has grown and there's more work involved. And so the interest is not there. You can't compete with people who make salaries. I would not have been able, if I was single, to do this job in this municipality because I wouldn't be able to afford to live here. And I think that's for most people. And I think you're really limiting yourselves as to what people who may step up to the plate. You just don't know. But for women in particular, it's very, very difficult, very, very difficult. And I think that's why there's a lot of us that live in poverty. There's a lot of reasons there where the system isn't set up to support us, but this is one of them.
Further? I'll just comment briefly. A bit of a, no surprise, different lens. Although I can empathize with Councillor Bauer. I mean, when I started here in 2003, I had a pretty thriving accounting practice. I took a $50,000 a year pay cut for this job, just because that was the decision I made, and thankfully I could. But it's not a full-time job. I mean, I don't mean to be disrespectful at the local level. It's just not, and doesn't warrant a full-time salary, in my opinion. And that's not just here. That's everywhere in the province, I think. To the meeting times, Councillor Lee is absolutely right. And as well, like we've got, 8 directors, CAO, all the staff online, staff here, sometimes staying till 10, 11, 12 o'clock at night after working all day. And we have to compensate them for this. And people aren't making the best decisions, especially like we've been at regional meetings that go to 11, 12 o'clock at night that started at 9:30 in the morning. And looking at what I've got here, I didn't have the report in front of me. I asked the clerk. It looks like only Oshawa and Durham still has evening meetings. Everybody has kind of transitioned to the inverse?
Inverse.
Oh. Oshawa has daytime meetings. Well, you just ruined my argument. I know the region, all the regional meetings, and for those of you that aspire to be regional councillors, regional meetings start at 9:30, and sometimes go, a short meeting is 6 hours at the region. I've been in some up to 15. I just boggles my mind that we'll be at the region, and from 9 o'clock or 9:30 in the morning till 1 o'clock, delegations, they haven't even started the business of the region. And by the time we get to it, it's just rubber stamped. Nobody's there anymore. In my opinion, that's what I feel, and I kind of feel that here sometimes when we get late at night. So I was happy to see this come forward. It was a recommendation from council that was respectfully, whether you support it or not, was passed, and staff have done the work, and this is in front of us today. So I will support it. Thank you. Seeing nothing further, let's vote. Oh, wait, sorry, we need a seconder. I need a seconder, Councillor Lee. Oh, you pulled it? Okay. So Councillor Lee, can I get a seconder, please? Councillor Telemer. Thanks for correcting that. Those in favor? I'll note that is carried on a 5-2. That concludes bylaws. Moving on to, is there any notice of motion? No. Moving on to any new business or announcements. You don't have to. I'm going to move on. Councillor Lee.
Thank you, Chair. For those of you who live in Ward 2, the Ward of Speeders, there is a community meeting, Ward 1 and 2, on Wednesday, February 21st, at the Audley Rec Hall, where Councillor Henry and I will be answering your questions regarding anything and everything doing with Ward 2. On top of that, I just wanted to mention that February is Black History Month, as we all know, and the town of Ajax will be hosting, I think, almost over 10 events. So you can just go to ajax.ca/BHM for all the details there. Specifically though, February 21st, in collaboration with other Durham Region municipalities, we have the Together We Rise Durham Region Black History Month celebration. It's from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. at the Chestnut Hill Developments Recreation Complex in Pickering. So thank you, Chair.
You're welcome. Not seeing anybody else in the speaker list. Moving on to confirming bylaw, moved by Councillor Tyler Moore and second by Councillor Bauer. The bylaw number 11-2024 being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the Council of the Corporation of the Town of Ajax at its meeting held on January 29th, 2024 be read a first, second, third time and passed. Those in favor? Yeah, vote no. Finally, moved by Councillor Henry, second by Councillor Lee, that the January 28th, 2024 meeting of the Council of the Town of Ajax be adjourned. Those in favor?